Alright, hi everybody, welcome. It is time for Discussing Tabletop. I hope everybody is having a great Saturday. It is, of course, January 11th, 2020. It is our first show of the 2020s.
Woo!
I know, it's exciting. So we have a couple of things to talk about today, not a big one. The main topics, of course, Onyx Path has announced a bunch of RPG-related things we'll talk about. They came from Beyond the Grave, Trinity Assassin, Trinity Adventure, Star Trek Gamma Quadrant is out. Alderac AEG has announced Mariposa, and Free League Publishing has acquired the Coriolis game property. Now there is one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, and I know it was a topic this is going to be kind of an unusual topic because it's lore related, and I know like not everybody's a big lore fan, especially of something like Magic the Gathering, but I did want to bring
I'm
this.
more of a data fan.
Yeah, since we brought up Star Trek, that's why this one's going to be kind of a brief one. That I agree with a lot of people that Wizards is doing what a lot of people that do a lot of lore will do, like Star Trek, Star Wars, and stuff like that. They're throwing their own rules out the window. And they're doing it because in the latest set, they have a person who's a planeswalker, and it was an artificial person, and they've specifically in previous rules stated artificial people can't be planeswalkers. Unless there's special circumstances. And the special circumstances they give this one is, it's Theros! Things can happen there. Because enchantments and dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not really great. It's not really a great excuse. And I know it's like a weird thing to kind of get a little upset about. And I'm not probably as upset as other people about it. I'm like, well, I mean, whatever. It's a stupid excuse. But at least they at least have one. But it is one of those things of like, there's been a bunch of things lately with the stuff with the latest Star Wars movie and other stuff like that, where people are just kind of like breaking their own canon and lore and switching it around, and it's just weird. And this is not the first time Wizards have been bending their own rules for weird reasons. So, I don't know. This is the kind of thing that it makes me worry that they'll throw it out the window. It seems as though like there is a large portion of the community, myself included, that enjoy the lore that's set up with it and the worlds they develop. Hell, I have an RPG which has started in the last couple of weeks that's set on Dominaria, one of Magic's planes. Of course I enjoy it a lot. But there are plenty of people that don't. And I understand that there's a lot of people in it, but it's like when they're ignoring a big facet of their community, it just kind of works on me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm medium with the lore. Like, I'll learn like the basic lore of a set just because it's interesting.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I don't know it as deeply as you do.
Oh yeah, because that's the kind of thing I dive deep into a lot of that stuff, and it's still like, for someone that dives just a little bit into it, you would like at least a thematic consistency, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you don't have that, then your lore is kind of just not necessary.
And that's what I think that's what people are feeling a little bit. And also, like, the entire story of the set was described in, like, a freaking, like page of text that they put up on their website. They stopped the books. They don't have the stuff online anymore. They stopped the books because the last one was awful. I think we talked about how awful it was.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, I don't know what they're doing. Wizards, bad decisions, often. At least in
maybe they're just stepping back from the lore for a little while because of the whole book issue.
They could be taking a step back from it because of that, but it's hard to say what their direction they're going to take with it is.
Yeah. It could be that they're taking a step back because of the issue, and then they'll see if people start saying, hey, we want this again.
Well, I think people have been saying they want the like online stories that they were doing like weekly, bi-weekly for a while because people really loved them.
Right.
Because they were like little short stories that told snippets of these worlds and added characters or added to characters in very interesting ways. And they weren't on a deadline, per se. And, like, you know, these things were easy to write for people, you know, or could write ahead of time. They weren't entire novels that people had time constraints to write and, like, certain things that they were supposed to put in and then could just put their own spin in order to speed it up and be bad writers.
Right.
There's a difference. But anyway, this was a little thing that kind of, I thought, because I've been seeing a bunch over at the past week, I thought I should talk about for a minute. So, Magic, please get your stuff together. Onyx Path. So, they have announced 3 main book kind of things. The first off is, of course, Trinity Continuum Adventure. Now, as someone that's familiar with all of the Trinity Continuum, the original games that it was based on, the original 3 were, it was Trinity, Aberrant, and Adventure. Aberrant's the one that we have experience with, which is like superheroes, White Wolf superheroes, because this originally was a very similar system to, because it was originally done by White Wolf. It was a very similar system to I think it is the Story Path system. It's the same system that, like, World of Darkness uses.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a fun. Aberrant was a fun game to play. We also, unfortunately, recreated Fantasy 9/11.
We did a lot of weird things. Yes, we took a flaming dragon and we couldn't stop it from hitting a tower, unfortunately.
In Atlantis.
That's the kind of crazy stuff we did.
Yeah.
Also, like, one of us created a hurricane over New York City, like a Category 5. That was a great idea. Anyway, yes. The Trinity system, the original one, which I was more familiar with, was set in, like, the far future, where there are other psychics, and the people that were superheroes have been more corrupted by their powers, so there's this war between the two of them, and you could be parts of either faction. Like, they implied the psychics were more akin to humanity and more good than the Novas as they were, but still. Right. But Adventure was the odd man out, because it's basically Indiana Jones. It's 1930s, Daredevils, members from Stalwarts, and it's got the Aeon Society for Gentlemen. Yes. So, I thought they were going to do Adventure, but Adventure's like the odd one out of that entire thing. And the other one that they have is they've announced Trinity Continuum Assassins, which is a modern-day one, which is focusing away from, like, I guess, superpowers and stuff, and more to what exactly it's named after. Assassins. You know? It's,
So would you call it a Blade Trinity?
Yes. I wasn't going to say...
I had to make the bad joke.
I was going to go along with it. I went along with it. I shouldn't have, but I went along with it.
Yeah. You should never go along with my bad jokes. Come on.
Fine. Now, it does require the Trinity Continuum core book, which I did make sure to get when I backed Aberrant, the new one, because I did that on Kickstarter. I think I have the PDF of it already. That's one of the ones I actually got. But I haven't read up on it, the core Trinity Continuum system, because it's the general system for all of them then at that point in time. So they're kind of expanding out as more of a general system, and then expanding to the different abilities of each one's a little more like in tune, still White Wolfy, or still World of Darknessy, but kind of pushed forward. So those two will be coming to Kickstarter soon. I don't know if they're going to come together or separately. Yeah, they've announced that both digital and print editions are planned for the new game following the successful Kickstarter. And they haven't announced when the Kickstarter will start yet either, but we know that these two are coming. And they were expected, it's just I didn't expect to hear from them this soon after the Aberrant one, because the Aberrant physical books and stuff aren't out yet. And the actual Aberrant, Trinity Continuum Aberrant book, I haven't gotten the PDF of it, so that means it's not out yet. And the other one was one that we heard a little bit about at PAX Unplugged. at least that it was in existence, is the Came From Beneath the Grave. They have a formal announcement after it. It's going to be their B-movie themed tabletop RPG of tongue-in-cheek horror, using the same system. So they've really hit the story path system pretty well, and are using it in a lot of places.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting at the very least.
Oh yeah, no. I'm going to be happy to check it out just because it seems like an interesting one. Just from the idea of it. You know, it's supposed to be like wonder, thrills, hilarity of 1950s sci-fi, 1960s, 1970s horror, all that kind of stuff kind of put together. It's the sci-fi horror genres of those B-movies that existed throughout the 50s through the 70s. And you're kind of getting the drama, the theatrics of that one. Some like Roger Corman and stuff like that. And so they Came From Beneath the Sea, and the person that developed that is working on this. They Came From Beneath the Grave. Unfortunately it's not coming out till 2021 is on their schedule, and they're probably gonna have the Kickstarter later this year. Is what they're saying. So they're announcing.
It'll be a bit of a wait.
It's going to be a bit of a wait for that one, and I'm expecting that the Kickstarter is probably going to be at least in third quarter. Maybe, right. Depending on, because it's a core system kind of thing, or it's a big system kind of thing, they might throw it out in second quarter, but they have already announced like that they're scheduling it for a 2021 release. But that's after the Kickstarter too. So they could start it like second quarter, get it out by like third, fourth quarter, and then have the full print run early 2021.
Right.
We'll have to see how they do on that one. I mean, I'm glad to see, because Onyx Path can't really do as much of the stuff with the vampire anymore. I'm glad to see that they're kind of branching out to some interesting things in different directions, using the story path system, the 10D, D10 system.
Yeah, great.
Watch me be filled with plague.
Plague. And then you're off to PAX with more plague.
I didn't get plague at the previous PAX. I don't know if I'll get one at this one. I might be immune to the PAX plague and just like suffer from normal plague from a small child.
It was Northeast PAX. It was, PAX in the Northeast. You're not used to those Southern germs.
The Texan germs?
Yeah. Everything's bigger in Texas, including the germs.
It's like a germ, like they can size like a cat. Like,
oh, God. I know we're going to be going into Star Trek in a bit, but the one Voyager episode.
Oh God, yeah. Ow! I hit my fan and it hurt my finger. What was it? Oh God, I had Lemurs.
It was the one virus.
I know, but it also reminded me I had Lemurs in the one game, and I was making like the because they're like like flesh creatures.
Right.
Though speaking of Star Trek, we're not doing Delta Quadrant, so that's not the giant viruses from Voyager, the macro virus. We're doing Delta Quadrant. Gamma Quadrant. Damn it.
Gamma, yeah. Delta's already been... no.
Delta's last.
Yeah, you're right.
But
we did get at least confirmation from them of why they did Gamma now and didn't start off with it.
Yes. We learned that
which made more sense.
The reasoning behind it that they had, which was a very interesting one, was they were doing historically the different sets, because the original series Enterprise was more in the Beta Quadrant, because it was dealing with things like Romulans and Klingons a lot. Then Next Gen dealt with the stuff more in the Alpha Quadrant, like on the borders of the Federation in that area. Yeah. Then we had Deep Space Nine for Gamma and Voyager for Delta, and that's why they do it in that order. It makes sense.
Yeah. Because it was just like, why wasn't the Alpha Quadrant first? That's where,
No, yeah. Like, logically...
spaced out of.
Yeah, logically it makes sense when they describe that. And it was like, wow, it's something you don't think about unless they state it particularly, because it was one of those things with how original series and Next Gen were. I always looked at them kind of between both those. But when you think about the storylines, maybe Next Gen was between both of them. That's very true, because they did stuff with Klingons and Romulans and Cardassians and all over the place. But they kind of then introduced that kind of, we can do stuff in the Alpha Quadrants with things like the Cardassians and stuff. Where,
and the Ferengi.
And the Ferengi.
Oh, no, wait. Actually, the Ferengi might be beta.
I think Ferenginar is in
I think it's
Alpha.
I think it's like on the cusp. I think it's on like the cusp of both, because if I remember correctly,
Ferenginar is in the Alpha Quadrant.
Okay.
At least I'm looking it up on Memory Alpha.
I think that it is near the beta.
It could be near the Beta Quadrant. Oh, wait, Star Trek Adventures. Show me your map. Help me in this thing.
I'm looking up a map online too. I'm like, okay, there's the Klingon Empire.
There's the Romulans.
Tholians. I'm sure this makes for a very exciting.
A look up Star Trek galaxy maps. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see it offhand, but this map is very, very, very detailed and littered with lots of places.
Yeah. You can find some very detailed maps online, and it's just
Oh, no, I was completely wrong. The Ferengi Alliance is actually closer to the Cardassian Union.
Okay.
And the Breen. They're between the Breen and the Cardassian Union.
Ooh, okay.
I wouldn't want to be hanging out there, actually. Neither of them are very nice people.
No. The Breen just don't like... Well, I mean, they both then went Dominion and stuff, and well, except for the Cardassians and Rebel.
The Cardassians are now kind of...
free reign.
Well, screwed.
In the shitter?
Yeah, because, they didn't win the war, they ended up rebelling, and...
They switched sides at the last moment. Literal last moment. Also when they the Dominion got pissed off at the rebels and, basically bombarded their home planet and killed, half a billion people.
Yeah, they blew up most of the cities.
Yep. Sucks to be in a Cardassian city, at least at the end of the Dominion War. Anyway.
Yes. Sorry, tangents.
Well, it's related because they do talk a lot about the Dominion. The Federation's relations with it, the other Gamma Quadrant denizens as of 2375, which I think is after the war.
Might be. I don't know my timelines as well as I used to.
Yes. 27th century. Was 2375. That's the Dominion War ended in 2375.
Okay.
Yep. So it is as of that moment that we're getting this information. So they go on about the Dominion's history, its structure, its cultural, members of member worlds, allies, enemies. Talk about the Dominion War, a dozen new alien species that you could be, like Docile, Lurians, Wadi, Sona, and Changelings.
Oh, that won't be hard for a GM to deal with at all.
I'm not saying anything.
I'm a changeling.
You could be one of the 100. Remember, it was Odo,
Yes.
and they only met, I think...
Well, no, but
two of the others.
What I'm saying is abilities.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna. Oh, you have a hull breach. That's fine. I'm just gonna swim around in space and be some kind of spaceborne thing for a while.
I mean, it did I think you have to use like Odo as an example because he did learn stuff, but it was like as if like he couldn't do a lot of things at first, and that's the kind of direction you'd probably have to take. That like maybe you could learn these different things on the course of the adventures, but
I learned to be fire.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give you a hug now.
Bad fire, bad. Get off our lawn. Which, please give a rousing, please stay safe to friend of the channel Tesh, as Australia's on fire.
It's been on fire for quite a while now.
Yes. Well, recently I heard that the fires were close by and he was downwind.
Ooh.
But they got rain, as of like a couple days ago. That's good news.
That's good. Mm-hmm. Remember, everything is deadly in Australia. Everything will kill you.
Especially now that it's all on fire. It's poisonous.
Koala bear.
It's poisonous or on fire. Take your choice. Well,
poisonous and on fire now.
It's shoving all the poisonous things into smaller areas because of the places that are on fire. So it's like you got them shoved in smaller zones. So now that you're in an area that's not on fire, it's filled with more poison stuff.
Flaming tarantula.
Mm-hmm. So that was a thing. Yeah. So no, but hopefully Tesh will remain safe.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. He's a nice guy. I like him a lot. But no, I'm very happy about the Gamma Quadrant source book. I think it's like the Beta and Alpha Quadrant books were interesting, but they're a lot like information blurbs, while I feel like this adds kind of like a rich history, and especially if you're going to do like a DS9 related game, this is the stuff you need for it.
Agreed.
You probably could have pulled off a Beta or Alpha Quadrant adventure, like original series or next gen, with just this base book. I probably could have pulled it off.
I mean, you could have done early DS9 without it.
That's true. You could have done stuff with just Cardassians or something.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the Alpha and Beta Quadrant books didn't add a lot, because they did. They did give you a bunch of options and give you some information that could have helped you along. But, like, this one, it does specifically open up a thing for, like, a lot of the seasons of DS9 were related to the Gamma Quadrant, and you need that for that. It's sort of like if you're going to do, like, a Voyager type thing, you kind of need the Delta Quadrant book.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Just a little bit.
Why would you need that?
I know. So this is definitely another one of those situations where it's very helpful and needed in the case of that. Unfortunately, they have been nice enough to provide.
Agreed. I can't wait till we actually run a campaign in it.
It's one of the ones...
Star Trek in general.
Yeah.
I got a taste and I want more. More.
There's definitely some ones that are pretty high on the list of interest. Yes. And it's just a matter of, like, for RPGs, and a matter of what I can start. Like, I wanted to replace D&D with D&D. That's why I kind of hit the one where I had the Magic one in mind for a long time, but I never had the opportunity to organize it. So, like, when Madness stopped, I was like, we can do that one then. That's a D&D one I have some plans for and kind of set some things up for.
Oh, yeah, and we got a really good group. A bunch of us had never played D&D together.
Yes.
But it's working out really nicely, I think.
I think even Mads have been the only ones to get to do stuff together.
Yeah, for on your channel, definitely. I mean, we knew Linz and Lee from doing board games.
Yep.
But we hadn't actually, like, role-played with them, and that's been working really well, and Fish has been great, too.
Yeah, Fisher's a good one for Mads to suggest, and I knew. I think Lee is in an interesting place, and I think his character needs a little like development still, but it's not bad. He's going in an interesting direction with it, and I think he can like kind of settle down on how he wants Maxwell to be a little bit more.
Yeah,
and I feel like the idea that Maxwell is a very much more like kind of like open in his words. He's a failed merchant, so like the fact that he just kind of just opens up and like says stuff, and it's like, maybe he doesn't know about this, and so he's just like terse about like, why are you doing that? What's with the strangeness there? Things like that.
Yeah. No, and him and I have been getting, character-wise, definitely have been getting along really well. We play off each other, so it's been a fun experience so far, and I think it's going to continue to be.
Yes, I think just I think the only people is like a little bit more open up from Mads and Lindsay, just because they play together and they're there, but I feel like because Mads is always like, unless she kind of gets hit by something, she's not speaking as much. So anyway,
yeah,
and like Lindsay's just kind of playing off her characters, like kind of bonded with her with Mads' character. So it's kind of interesting that like I feel like they could use a little bit more spotlight sometimes in comparison to the rest of the group. And that's going to be like a hard balance to try to get it that they have that too sometimes. Just because of the nature of their characters, it seems like. While, like, you and Maxwell's very, like, open. Kazran is, like, he's there too. When he starts talking, he's just like, oh, God.
Yeah, he's just like, I don't know what I've gotten myself into.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it's what you say, too, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, well... I'm just old and... tired. Part of me wants to actually die at some point. It just will never probably happen.
It's just, you would want to die of old age and not, like, get yourself killed, kind of thing.
The problem is, I don't know if I could die of old age.
Womp womp. But anyway, we can talk a little bit about that more a little later.
Yes.
Let's move on to our main topics still, as we have yet another one with Mariposa. Now, Mariposa, did we hear a little... we might have just seen a little bit of this. I don't remember if we...
I don't think we've... If we talked about it, it was very little.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's like hard to tell what we all talked about. Because I thought we did communicate a little with the AEG people.
Yeah, but I meant like on stream.
Oh yeah, we didn't go on about it at all on stream. From our experiences at PAX Unplugged, I think we saw it. But it's all about the monarch butterflies leaving Mexico and heading northeast every spring, and every fall they fly back to Mexico, and no single butterfly ever makes the round trip. It's a game of movement and set collection, and you're part of that amazing journey. It's played in 3 seasons, and genera butterflies try to head north in spring, spread out in summer, and return south in fall. End of each season brings scoring, so there's 3 scoring periods. At the end of fall, the player with the most successful butterfly families, i.e. the most victory points, wins the game. Fairly simple kind of concept. They got 50 wooden butterfly markers, which is kind of cool. The seasonal cards, flower dice, flower tokens, score markers, action cards, life cycle cards, bonus movements. It's supposed to be $50, 2 to 5 players. They say 5 to 10 minute setups and around an hour gameplay, give or take. Probably depending on the number of your players and, how in depth you go. And it has quite an interesting, very colorful map. It's kind of got this black background with striking of a whole bunch of different colors over top of it. It's very interesting. And it kind of marks out... It's supposed to be, I think, locations in the U.S. because you can see there's like Boston, they mark New York, Richmond, Orlando. It's kind of like a sort of U.S. without being an actual U.S. And I think probably the South, it goes into like the Mexican locations.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting game.
Yes. Now, unfortunately, because this is going to be available this summer for this time, we don't know a lot about it, and don't have any kind of rules up yet. So it will be like June, July, August when we see this come out.
Yeah.
I mean, if we have nothing else to talk about, we might talk about it again then. I know us.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think it might go. It probably. I think probably does go into Mexico, but it's all the North. It's North America basically.
Yeah. Well, I think you go into like the northern Mexico area where the butterflies are supposed to go or something. That might be the blue part at the bottom of the map, from what I can tell. So that's probably where you're supposed to return to after your long and harrowing journey of heading north and spreading out and butterflying.
I like to be butterflying.
I like to be butterflying, and I like to have butterfly relations with other butterflies up in the north. It is a great place to have butterfly relations with them, depending on if you are a lady or man butterfly with the other group of the butterflies.
Are you going to sex my butterfly?
I will my bisexual butterfly if it is required by butterfly law.
I didn't know butterflies had law.
See? Should have known.
Do they have order too?
No, because they don't have. Is it Dick Wolf?
Yes.
They don't have butterfly. They don't have butterfly Dick Wolf to lead them.
Butterfly Dick Wolf never died in my world. Anyway, before I go off in too much of a tangent there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I got his name right. Okay, you were right about that.
I knew it was Dick Wolf.
I was like, did I get it right? And I had to look it up there for a second.
Yeah, no, I knew it was Dick Wolf. My fiance watches those shows, so
some of them are still ongoing.
Prolific. Yes, that's why she watches the new ones. Very prolific.
Law and Order SVU. I mean SUV. Damn it! I was gonna make the joke, and I messed it up because that's what a while my mom watched this for a while, and then she got tired of them many years ago, and so that was the joke that it was Law and Order SUV, sort of swoo.
We're driving around in an SUV. Wow, making Law and Order.
Yeah.
Isn't Ice-T on that?
I think
that's
he
a different one.
was. He was. I don't know if he currently is. I can find this out because now I'm curious. I shouldn't be.
Why are we diving into this?
Yes, he's a regular as of season 2 onward.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And on that note...
Mm-hmm. It's apparently... him and the lady from the first season has still been there the entire goddamn time. Yeah, God. Go for you having 21 seasons. That was something that I ended up looking up accidentally. It's way too many seasons. Anyway, let's talk about another topic, because we do have one more main topic to talk about, an interesting one. A bit of news. So Free League Press has acquired the Coriolis game property. Coriolis was under the... Coriolis was under Paradox Interactive. And I think we have talked about stuff published for it, Coriolis Third Horizon, a couple of times. But now Free League Publishing, who are the people that have like the new Aliens game, they have Tales from the Loop, Symbarium, Mutant League Zero. We talked about all these things. They may have been the people that were publishing it before, were like putting out the books for it. I can't remember who was putting out the books for it.
I'm not 100%.
Modifius had it under the collections, but I don't know if that means that they were doing it at all.
Right.
Well, Modifius does have a connection with Paradox, because now Paradox are the people that had English. Paradox has White Wolf, and White Wolf does vampire. Modiphius is doing vampire. There you go. What? I connect the dots.
Connect the dots. La, 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 la.
So, they may have been the ones that did it previously. Because they have, like, no, they say Free League Publishing for a couple of their books on here, though. And Modiphius Entertainment for a few of them. So...
They might have worked together at some point.
Yeah. Because it looks like Coriolis...
Because we know Modiphius does also just, like, some publishing and stuff like that.
But yeah, because they started out publishing the V5 stuff, and now they're the actual producers, too. And it looks like Modiphius was behind it, the Coriolis, before, and I'm guessing it was probably they were at least putting it out through their connections with Paradox. But Paradox is officially bought the rights to it now, or Free League Press has officially bought the rights to it. They had done the original book back in 2017 of it, and then Modiphius had been at least publishing the supplements that came out after this first one. But this is signaling that Free League Press wants more control over this property that they were the first ones to kind of put out. You know, and maybe that's more moving it back in-house.
Right.
So it's a kind of an interesting move. And it's a complex thing for this game system, which I'm wondering it's going to mean what effects it's going to mean overall in the system itself, as we have now two big publishers that are behind it. You know, Free League originally putting out this first book, and then letting Modiphius take the reins, or Modiphius took the reins because of what Paradox wanted, and now Free League taking it back fully.
Right.
Yeah. So they originally released this under Paradox Interactive in 2017. And that's all they did for it then. They published the original core book. So maybe it's because Free League was focusing on some of their other games like Mutineer Zero and Tales from the Loop that, you know, we didn't hear from it.
Yeah, that definitely could be.
Because, you know, Tales from the Loop has had some big things. There's going to be, that Tales from the Loop TV series or streaming series.
Yeah.
And then Mutineer Zero had the XCOM style video game, which was actually pretty good, and like it was interesting. I don't know how well it connected with the actual RPG, unfortunately. Because
yeah, I want to try that at some point.
I think I got a copy of it through Humble Bundle, at least the core game.
Oh.
I just haven't done it yet. There's a whole bunch of games in my
I know I have it on tabletop.
Yeah. But like the XCOM style video game it's a very interesting one, and definitely would maybe recommend checking it out, at least if you want to get the world of Mutineer Zero. So Free League Press does some very good worlds and creations, and then they just have the Alien game, which they were pushing hard at Gen Con and then PAX Unplugged, which has come out now. Which
I know that's like their all-star property right now.
Yes, that's their big one. Well, I can understand why it is a big license to have and to create something under.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a following for that franchise, even if it's gone down a little in quality over the years.
And there's Mutineer Zero Road to Eden. There it is. I just wanted to make sure that I had it installed. I do have it installed. I just have to play it at some point in time. Yeah, so Free League Press does some good stuff. That's the thing about it. I can't complain about a lot of the work they do. I know definitely... I can remember some of the other ones, like Symbarium, the dark fantasy RPG. When we talked about that, it seemed very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think we've brought up the Forbidden Lands at least once, like long ago, but they haven't... again, like, the big things that I remember they've been putting out more lately is Tales from the Loop stuff, or Aliens, and then Mutant Year Zero, I think it was a little bit before there. And we haven't seen a lot from the other RPG systems per se, as much time. And I think we've talked about Coriolis a few times. I mean, 2017, we were around talking about shit then.
Yeah. I'm pretty darn sure we have talked about Coriolis before.
But I don't remember how many times we've talked about it when it's the Modifius books, or if it's specifically the original book when it came out. I can't say for sure.
Yeah, neither could I. That's been quite a while now.
Yeah.
God, we're getting old.
Always. Yeah, no. So I'm just curious about what's going to become of all this stuff. Like, all the PDFs are still up on Modifius' site, and Lost Emissary, I think that probably their last book, or a couple of last books, have physical books still, though. Some of the older ones are just PDFs at this point in time.
Right.
But I don't know. They might still continue with the PDFs because they had the license at the time, but I don't know if overall if they're going to change things for it. I'd be curious just to see what would happen with a change between them at that point in time, if there would be one or none, or it would stay the same.
Right, yeah. How close they stick together.
Yeah.
Since they're just different publishers.
Yeah. And since apparently, like, Free League owns it completely now.
Right. Are they going to take it in a complete different direction, or are they going to try to keep it somewhat the same?
Well, they want them to keep their books, like, out there, or to slowly kind of move them out of the spotlight, you know? Will they still keep them as source material that they could use?
Right.
Like, it's one of those things that, like, well, when you move to another edition, like when V5 came out, the V20 stuff wasn't ignored. All the stuff that Onyx Path did wasn't ignored. It just was legacy stuff. You know, it was history, and they're moving into their modern interpretation of how things are going on their timeline. Which, I mean, that's another entire story. How I'm not the biggest fan of the V5 storyline. Some of it makes sense, but there's, like, extremes to it that I don't really enjoy from what I've read up on.
Right.
But that's an entirely another thing. You know, that's complaining about stuff. And that's what I'm trying to avoid a little bit of. Probably.
You complain about anything? Never.
I don't. Anyway. So, yeah. Coriolis Lost Emissary, it's back under Free League Press, the people that originally put out the core book. So let's see what happens now. And I want to pay attention to how it keeps on its relations with Modifius, who put out some stuff for it. So.
Right.
Let's see here. I think that's our main stories. Unfortunately, just because of the nature of the holiday seasons and the beginning of the year, even though we were 2 weeks off, there wasn't a lot over the past 2 weeks.
Right.
You know?
It's just that time of year where a lot of announcements have already been made.
And in between Christmas and New Year's, and a little bit after New Year's, zip. So, really, with 2 weeks, since we took 2 weeks from that time period, it was really like 1 week of material that I was able to put together.
Right.
So, let's, I guess, move on to our regular segments then. Let's start with deeper discussion. I don't think we got any review copies of anything that we haven't talked about before. We talked about Pirate Tricks last episode.
We haven't really gotten to play that much in the last couple weeks.
We got to play the Oil Baron game that you got as part of the 50 thing, but that's going to be part of our week in tabletop. We can kind of move into that. We'll skip the Kickstarter for a moment if we still want to hit that up, if you've got one.
I have something interesting.
Okay, because I with some stuff on my end, and getting ready for my trip next week, I didn't throw together one that I really felt like I really liked. I had a couple of options and I just couldn't decide, so I'll let you do yours. But let's kind of talk about our week in gaming a little early then, because that kind of moves into it. We did play last week that oil baron game, and it was interesting. I'd say that there's a lot of heavy strategy that until you play it for the first time, I think you don't understand.
Yeah, that is very true. And there was a few, as any game, the first time playing through, we made a few mistakes.
Some big mistakes when we made them too.
Yeah, that would have changed how things are. I guess the only complaint I think we really had on that game was the how the oil spouts connected together.
Yes.
They were a little hard to connect, and then they were hard also to disassemble.
Yep.
Which caused some issues because we were like, oh, well, maybe we'll just sit them to the side, and then we got their side, and once a oil rig has used its last spout, it gets returned to your thing so you can build more. And we had some that returned early that shouldn't have been, and that would have changed scoring at the end.
And then when we returned them, because it was appropriate to return them, then it changed the scoring completely at the end because they would have either maybe lasted longer, we don't know how long they lasted. There's a lot of number-based things that were very important to the final scoring that went away with that. And we didn't understand one of the abilities. There was these abilities of going back 3, which were like, oh, that's everybody. No, it's everybody but the person using it.
Yeah,
which is actually
another
really
one.
good. It's really good then. You drop everybody back 3, but you.
Yeah, and the reason that's so important is because you have to have your train equal to your furthest oil spout or ahead of it.
Along this line that you're constantly moving on, yeah.
Yeah, to be able to freely move your oil. If your train is behind, you have to pay the train that's the furthest ahead.
And they still have to at least be connected to that.
Yeah, and if there's no one at least at the same level, you just lose that oil that round. So that is an important tactic of when you want to move people back, and we thought it was everyone move back, but it's everyone but the player playing it. And that's a big difference because that's easier to go, oh, well, you're doing really well. I'm going to move, I'm not doing as great as the other guys. I'm going to move everyone back so I can start to catch up. It's a good tactic. We weren't using it a lot of times because we're like, oh, I don't want to move back.
Yes, but it's not you who uses it,
Yeah. So that was the thing. But overall, I think the gameplay was really good.
Yeah. And always be building wells. That was one thing, because I skipped a few turns and I noticed it hurt me to skip a turn. Even if I didn't find a really good well, it would have been worth it to build.
Especially that first round.
That first round. Even 2 oil plumes, if you can sell them for at least 2,000, which is in the negative numbers, because their numbers go up and down, that is in the reds, 2,000. If you can at least sell it for 2,000, you break even. Anything more than that, it's profit. So it's worth it even for a 2 on that first round.
Yeah. Because it's 2,000 to build?
4,000. 4,000,
4,000, right.
The so 6 is random guess.
If you sell one, you have to sell both for at least 2,000 to break even. But most of the time, you're not going to be selling that cheap if you can sell. Because that's another thing in the game is that we messed up was the bidding part, because you keep accumulating cards and we were discarding our hands at the end of every turn, and that's not how it works. You're supposed to keep accumulating. That way you can bid more and more.
If necessary, or if they get to be bidding wars.
Because the bids are only 1 and 2 on the cards. So that makes it a real crapshoot even if you get 5 cards and the other person only gets 3, if they get 3 2s and you get 5 1s.
Yeah. Well, there were some things that give you a lot of licenses, that some people got a lot of licenses some turns and then couldn't really use them, And then it's a measure of like when you're selling, when you're not selling, and planning it out too. So it adds a lot of strategy. So it's a very interesting game. But definitely we did a bunch of really heavy mistakes, which would have altered the gameplay a lot.
Yeah. So, but it was still a lot of fun.
It was very fun. I would love to play it again and maybe do it right. that was the big board game we did. Like this week, we had the 3 normal games. We've had Children of Wrath twice, and we had Grinding Gears once.
Yes.
So, if you want to handle Grinding Gears, I'll handle the others, probably.
Well, they've made some leaps and bounds. They had a minor boss fight.
Mm-hmm.
The town was attacked, of course, during the festival.
Of course.
Because why wouldn't that happen? They were able to survive it, even though was it pixies or sprites?
The sprites, I think it was.
Yeah, kept poisoning everyone with arrows.
Except for me, I'm immune.
Except, yeah, you're the only.
Well, I wasn't immune to, but I had resistance, and I'm like,
yeah, they just kept damaging you though.
It's like, ow.
For a point of time, ow, like, ow. They whittled you down pretty close, I think.
They did a lot of damage to me.
I think there was one or two heavy hits from the Master Boggles.
Yeah.
And I had fun creating those, changing the Boggle abilities around a little bit and making a more deadly creature out of them. Surprisingly, they went after the little Boggles, which I was having more there for that, a reason that the town guard was distracted and not helping you with the bigger stuff. But you guys ended up taking out everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the town guard helped a little bit, but
we murdered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we did get pretty beat up, so it wasn't it wasn't a one-sided fight.
Oh so. No! It compared to some of the other fights that have happened, you guys did have to actually fight hard on this one. You managed to save the book. It didn't get teleported away, which you were trying to do.
Yep.
And you have now accessed Fedor's workshop.
Yep.
Which is where we left off. I also learned a bunch of very hard lessons when we first went down there about dynamic lighting.
Yes.
And all the setup that needs to be done for Roll20 for that.
You thought you had it down. You did not.
Yeah. Well, one of the main things I didn't understand until I really looked over it more and looked at the wiki articles. If you're using Roll20 and you're using the more advanced features, definitely look at the wiki articles. They're very useful. There's a lot of good stuff there. But you have, I had a pre-generated map, and I didn't realize that you had to build walls within the dynamic lighting layer to stop light from going through the map walls, because it doesn't realize there's walls. It just knows that there's something there on that layer.
Mm-hmm.
So this Sunday, tomorrow, when we do Grinding Gears, everything is now set up. We also learned about setting up tokens for all our games.
Oh yeah, that was a good one to learn, the token setup. All the rules for that. That was a cool one.
Now we have names on all our tokens. You can see the current hit points. For the DM, we can now, when we're running, we can see characters' armor classes, which is really nice. You don't have to look it up on their sheets or just go, hey, does this hit you? Because you don't remember. So there's a lot of good hacks and things that you can set up. I eventually want to look at macros. Ugh, I can speak today.
Mm-hmm.
And see about setting up stuff for that. I've also learned about mooks, setting up your villains in the game and how to easily do tokens for those and have information on them. So when you do the initial setup before the game, you have everything you're looking at, and you're not having to look at another sheet all the time.
Yep.
But yeah, we left off. They're about to explore the lair, and they've gotten a little bit separated due to some interesting teleporters that have been built in.
Yep. So we'll see how that works.
Yes.
I did have one session of Records of Evil. We came back after the holidays, which unfortunately we have another 2-week break for both Records and Legacy, because Worm is going on a trip for 2 weeks.
And you're going on to PAX South this week.
Yes, so the fact is, like, it wasn't a problem for me because, A, I'm going to be prepping for like a multi-day trip, so maybe having the extra day wouldn't be bad. And then B, when I come back, it'll be after the long trip on Monday, I come back late. And then, oh, wait, now Tuesday, right in the morning, I'm expected to do stuff? Well, I'm fine with that, actually, having break around the PAX. But anyway, the session was fun. They managed to find the stairs down to the 4th layer, which is, I guess, where they kind of think they want to go. And they found some more like temples to like some lemurs, and they managed to piss off a banshee. So that's fun. They left off where they're about to fight that and maybe die, because everything maybe kills them. And they never they never think to retreat and make a full rest somewhere. They're like, oh, we're fine with this lower hit points. I'm like, you're not fine. Why do you keep going? You met a wraith and fought some who like sent his specter minions on you and left. He might come back. You're at much lower hit points. Your maximum hit points have been lowered. Go take a nap somewhere. Go take a nap in the centipede room, where you fought the giant centipedes, which also beat the crap out of you.
Oy.
And then we had Legacies of Kain, in which they actually haven't gone to Hawaii yet. They were talking about going to Hawaii, but instead they finished up in Maine. They met with the Nosferatu assassin they were trying to meet with, who's been learning new abilities secretly in order to murder his arch nemesis. And you're like, we're trying to lure your arch nemesis to this auction. Can you murder him for us so we can take his stuff? Because there's something he has we want. Mm-hmm.
Fun.
Yeah. So they've actually arranged for 2 possible assassinations at their auction they're planning in Hawaii.
Can the auction happen at a volcano and you just sacrifice them?
It would be really nice. I also have like this huge list of characters that are like people that they know they invited and that they want, and then there's also like the list. There's a GM section of people that are probably going to show up that they don't want to show up. Because they've made many friends and enemies along their way.
And frenemies?
A few of those also. They invited the frenemies. They knew about the frenemies, because they're like, they'll probably not try to murder us.
Probably.
So that was fun. It's that game has a lot of just role-playing.
Weird stuff.
Yeah. It's Vampire. It's never a combat-heavy game. Occasionally you have some combats, but it's mostly role-playing. It's the nature of Vampire. It's always been that way, kind of. And they hit the nail on the head a lot. And then
Next is LARPing it.
That's why vampires often LARP, because it's like a step away from it how well they do it. Since you don't do a lot of combat and stuff, it's easier to LARP. Then we had a premiere of a new RPG show in place of the Madness time slot for the time being. As I said, Madness is, maybe I wouldn't call it like it's a hiatus, but it's like a kind of that indefinite hiatus until I can figure out something to do with the property. I like the world. Again, we weren't in a good spot, and I didn't establish the game very well. I wrote stuff down, and I stuck to it too heavily. That's what I say too about it. I didn't adapt it properly for a show and for the nature of the show.
Yeah, and there was also a system change, because originally you did it in Pathfinder, we switched to 5e.
Yes, for when I wrote it. I originally wrote it in Pathfinder and switched it to 5e, and there was
some conversion issues too.
Yeah. But anyway, so Children of Wrath started. It is a D&D 5e game that's using the Magic the Gathering world of Dominaria. I'm using the Plane Shift Dominaria book, plus some information on the plane that I know about, and I could look up a combination of what I know and what I could look up on the wiki when I don't know something. Because there's definitely a couple continents and islands that I'm like, what the frick is there? Where I have to like look up and I'm like, okay, what's this place here? Oh, it's that place. That's right, I remember there. You know, that kind of thing. It's the same what you do like with normal geography. You're like, do I remember this from like the billion years of cards and quotes and, you know, bits of information that's been said about by these? Oh yeah. So the first session had them aboard a sailing ship, a very slow sailing ship. There are faster ones, but they were taking a 2-month journey across a big ocean. So it was a pretty decent journey. They were 4 of them were passengers, 1 was crew. And originally a storm happened. They ended up fighting crab monsters which appeared in the cargo hold during said storm.
That was...
I just used Ankeg stats and changed their attacks. It was really easy. It's like, instead of a bite, they just have crab claws.
You know, it was fun. It was really fun for me because I got to use my character to its most effectiveness because there was plenty of places to hide.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were in a cargo hold.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to be able to be like, oh, I can attack. Use my hide as a thief. And then because I'm an undying, or not undying, revived rogue, do my bolts from the grave because I didn't use my sneak attack to do another attack. So it was just like, I got to have a lot of running around and doing things.
It was interesting because it was a very confined space too. Like it was a cargo hold. These things were like crawling on top of cargo. You were not. You know, they're large and able to like get their crabby legs around the things and, you know, crawl them pretty easily over the things in comparison to you guys.
And then we also had Kazaran having his mobile turret.
Yeah.
Which is fun too.
Because he's the artillerist artificer.
Yeah.
So things went well with that battle. After the storm, everybody was exhausted. Then pirates attacked. And
well, we were exhausted.
That was the point. There were goblin pirates with their captain and some merfolk mercenaries. Which I guess the characters really haven't realized that it was the merfolk that had like put the stuff on there that have the creatures be summoned in there. Yeah. They were hoping to attack from below during the storm, so they started things out like that. And then when everybody emerged from it, they like let the goblins know that they had survived. You know, they probably took care of it and sent the goblins in to finish you guys off. They assumed probably a bunch of crew would die to the giant crab monsters.
Right.
It was to soften them up.
Unfortunately for them, a lot of the crew didn't die from them. Fortunately for us.
Yes.
Unfortunately, a lot of the crew died to the goblins.
Yes.
Because they're all exhausted.
They were all exhausted, and you led the sudden insurrection that no one was ready for.
Wasn't me, it was Kazaran.
Because they took something from him, which seems important now. Yes. They haven't learned how important it is. Anyway, because of the loss of crew and damage to the ship, they had headed to a nearby port, which was a Minotaur port. There's some tribes that live in some mountains of Jamura, northern mountains. So it's kind of got like jungle at the coast that leads up into these reddish mountains where the forest breaks away and it becomes a lot more rugged and a little bit more like arid. It feels like very like portions of South America a lot, like, you know, like how it goes from like maybe jungle down below and it goes up in these mountains where it's like, you know, very different terrain.
Right.
So kind of it's like the one port town they have. They had some adventures there, met with some folks, bought some things, had a good time, kind of bonded as a team. So I felt like this was a good episode for like team bonding and kind of cementing you are a group of people. And maybe getting like some hints about where to go next. There's this idea of maybe going to like Talarian colleges, the Talarian academies. I'm calling it college because of the YouTuber, but it's Talarian Academy.
Yes.
God.
Because our Libarbarian.
Yeah, you're Libarbarian. You're barbarian librarian.
Yes. She's very much obsessed with trying to read books.
It's fine.
But we also earned some cash.
You did earn some cash. You got some for your work on the boat, and then, like, you know, helping out with some things, so...
And we all got to play some music.
Mm-hmm.
/ tell stories / Play more music.
And none of you rolled really badly to screw it up.
No, we actually rolled decently. Yay.
There was the possibility of earning 0. You didn't get to that, fortunately.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, we earned decent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just happy I'm not broke anymore. My character did not have a copper to his name.
So it was a fun session. It was an interesting one. And we're kind of leaving off out there, kind of moving towards the boat heading out again. So they're very close to that and kind of continuing the adventures and sailing. And that was the big games that we've had. Just those RPGs. We did do, I think, a session of the Pathfinder 2nd that I'm running off stream.
Yes.
With Joe and some friends, some of our older friends. Like Blaze, who's on the channel for 7 days on Fridays. And on Grinding Gears. He's one of the people in that one. I think we had the one session where...
we didn't have a session this week.
Yeah, you had one last week where you kind of finished up with the Lich, kind of. And I think you were exploring another area and considering just leaving. And you got to that room with treasure.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, treasure.
Mm-hmm. The room that was very difficultly sealed, and you managed to get in there with a couple of really lucky rolls, actually.
God. And...
Because I was not going to prevent you from getting in there. It just was very difficult to get in there, and you did.
Using a magical spike and practically destroying it?
Yeah, that was actually not a bad idea.
Anti-magic spike.
The anti-magic spike in the door was actually a really good idea. And that fireball, the ice ball, kept going off on you guys. It would have kept going off, you know.
Yeah.
Lucian, he tried his best to counter it, but he had to roll pretty well to counter that one. Let me put it that way. So, he rolled very well his first time. Second time, not so well. Hence why you all exploded the second time.
Yeah. It was a jerk trap.
Well, that was the point. There's a reason why it wasn't raided when the place fell.
Yes.
The door was a lot more annoying to break into than you thought, and the trap sucked.
Yeah. But we managed, and we got a lot of good loot.
Yep.
We're looking at like one last place in that area to see if it's just more living quarters. And if it is, we're probably going to just exit and sell off some stuff and continue our journey elsewhere.
Yes, which I'm curious as to what your plan will be next. Like,
I'm guessing we're probably going to go back to the magic school.
Yeah, that sounds like the next thing is going back to the magic school. Probably. So that was also a fun one. We've had a lot of good RPG adventures. Unfortunately, like with next week being very skim, but the next week after that, we should theoretically back to some of them. Like Children of Wrath should be back in 2 weeks' time, right before our next session of Discussing Tabletop. And we'll at least probably get the episode of Grinding Gears in, and then a session of Pathfinder theoretically on Monday, as long as we have the people.
Right.
Second edition. Which, my report... I think I've said my report on second edition. I don't mind the system. I don't like it as much as original Pathfinder. I think they...
I would concur with that.
There's definitely some choices I really like in it. There are other choices that I just kind of scratch my head on. The action economy aspect, that I thought was very cool. Like,
oh, yeah.
There are too many feats. That is what I will say. And the proficiency still kind of confuses me. I understand it's supposed to be based on level, and then, like, other things can affect their proficiency, so you get really high numbers at very high level, it seems like. Like, into the, 40s and stuff, and I'm like, that seems too high. In some ways. Like, I'm proficient at it, I have my level bonus, but then I'm like... Am I a novice at that skill? Am I a master? To give me better bonuses? It seems that, also then, level discrepancies. Like, very high level things versus very low level things, you can't have that. In 5th edition, very low-level things could still kick your butts if a lot of them started attacking you, because your AC's never going to get that crazy. Your attacks are going to get a lot higher. You're probably going to have big spells. But, like, enough of those tiny attacks on you could probably still wear you down, even at pretty high levels.
Right.
This, I don't feel like it'll happen. I feel like that discrepancy of the proficiency, which is based on level, will eat away at that very quickly.
That's definitely a distinct possibility.
Yeah. So there's some very big problems I see with 2nd edition.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, we're still getting used to the system.
Yes, true.
We still also have to incorporate
hero points?
Yes.
We haven't. They are there, but we just don't use them, kind of thing.
Yeah, we really should start using them because they refresh every
session. They change. You get new ones every session.
And they can be used to, help with rolls and stuff. So we really should be using them more often. It's just we completely forget about them because in previous editions they were an optional rule.
Yeah.
And in this edition they actually just are.
Well, there's other things that I kind of like. I don't mind that they're very mechanical in ability scores. That, like, your race, background, and class will determine what your ability scores are. Because each of those will affect how you were built. Granted, I feel like there could be a little give and take in there somehow. Like, maybe there could be instead of just using all 10s, maybe you could have, like, a little bit of give in those original numbers you're starting out with before you add them on to. Like, if you want to build your character, like... But I don't know how you would do that. They don't have that integrated. Like, oh... You can, like, add, subtract points onto these places here, That's, right. Maybe, like... Maybe that you could have base 12s and 3 of them, and base 8s and 3 of them, too. It would suck to be that character, because those stats might not raise at all, and you just have all 8s. And that is just an awful character. But I don't know, there's things like that I could see kind of messing around with that. I don't mind it. It's an interesting concept. I don't think it was implemented as well as it could be.
Right.
And the spell system's cool too, like with how actions determine how many spells you can cast. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, like Magic Missile is interesting with that. It's one of the few things that you can use all 3 actions on.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it almost favors if you're a class that has a melee or ranged type of attack other than magic, because if you're not planning on moving around the battlefield much, you could cast a spell, which most spells take 2 actions, and then still get like a stab or a shot in.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a lot to it that seems interesting. And just that report on it as because we have been playing it and talking about it a little bit is good. It's just... There's just also like the feats. There's way too many fucking feats. You have a feat for everything. You have a feat for your race. You have a feat for your general feats. You have a feat for your class. You have a feat for your skills. Feat for your backgrounds. Way too many feats. Some of these
there are a lot.
I understand.
It does suffer a little bit from like the 3.5
already. Now, I understand the nature of it. It's basically like all those class options you had, like alternate racial abilities. I build my race how I want to because I use feats. I build my skill specialties how I want to because I have skills. I build my class how I want it to be because I have class feats. I build my character with general feats. So it's like I use all these different feats to build the character I want, kind of thing. And I understand that's supposed to be the nature of it. But again, there are a billion feats.
Very true.
From different sources. And it just seems crazy at times.
It can be a lot to take in and figure out.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, no. Interesting, definitely, though. We'll probably talk about it more as we dive deep into it. I think that's one that we can talk about a little bit here.
Yeah.
But do you want to hit up that Kickstarter you had?
Yeah, I think we're good, really. It was It's basically one that had already happened, and that they're adding. They're trying to make a nicer cover book for an RPG.
Oh, okay.
So I just thought it was interesting, like, and it would be an interesting topic of, hey, is this something that is really interesting to do? It's called Casper's. It's a 1920s bootlegging game with superpowers. And they already had a successful Kickstarter before, but they want to make a nice hardcover copy. And so they're Kickstartering to make the really nice hardcover copy. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that, it's like, let me put it over actually in stream chat.
Yes.
I just wanted to give it a shout out. I think it's interesting. They had a successful Kickstarter, and they decided, hey, we want to do a nicer quality book for our people.
What? I'll be.
We wanted to make sure.
I didn't have time. I'll finish it as soon as I'm done here.
To address that.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So, but that's really all I had to say about it. It was just kind of an interesting little thing.
Cool. Now we're interrupted. So we finally end up with our last section, Consult the Table. This is where if you have any questions that you want to throw out into our Twitch chat, if you want to throw it into the discussions on YouTube, if you want to email us at discussingtabletop@yahoo.com, if you want to throw it into Discord, either directly into my Discord where there's chats like the Discussing Tabletop chat, or you can message us directly on Discord or on Twitter. Our Twitters are below our names here. A lot of ways to contact us about what's going on with your if you have any questions related to tabletop or anything similar to that. So, yep, just message us. We'll be glad to answer it. If it's something we can answer then, we'll answer it there, or we'll throw it into here and kind of discuss it in this area. So,
yeah.
Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you once again, Joe, for joining me.
Of course.
I'll be at PAX South next week. I'm definitely going to be checking out the Indie Tabletop Corner. That's my big reason to be there. But as media, I'm at least going to probably check out some of the other stuff too there, because apparently they be considered media that gets you to see some video games too. That's cool. Nice. I mean, the tabletop's the real reason I'm there. The video games are the reason that I'm just going to have some fun, because it's much less business than it was at PAX Unplugged.
Yeah. That's more of, hey, I get to do something for myself.
Yeah. I get to enjoy a little bit of business and then go off and do that. My business is like 6 games or something, as it was last time I was there. They might have more or less, I don't know, but it was like 6 games when I was there a couple years ago. If it's 6 games again, that's a very easy time. I can try them out. I can have talks with people. It'll be good.
You can actually have like a deeper discussion and more time to actually, more time to actually dive into it. Then, hey, what do you got? Cool. We'll have notes. Hopefully, we can talk in the future. Because that's more what PAX Unplug is for us, just because there's so much to go over.
Anyway, so yeah. Yeah. So, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, theoretically, and, whatever happens next week, check it out. It'll be announced on Discord and Twitter, and Grinding Gears tomorrow. Join us at 8 p.m., 7 p.m., sorry, 7
p.m.
Yes.
Eastern.
Yeah, 7 to 10. So, thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.
Bye.